seems like we need to continue a conversation that was begun last week's episode, 744, on how do I make my spouse care or help my spouse care, because an email came in and shortly after it aired that sets the stage for where we're going to go today. It's a continuation in some ways, but we're also going to go maybe a little bit of different. We'll see. So this is from a wife saying, I love listening to your podcast. Just heard your episode 744 where you addressed a wife's concern about getting her husband to care about his health. And I'm in a somewhat similar but reversed situation. It's been 8 years since my husband and I have been intimate. Last March, he told me it's because I'm overweight and messy. I've been working hard to make changes. I've lost 22 pounds and I've been focusing on eating better and exercising, but he's never acknowledged these efforts. I'm dealing with some additional challenges too. I'm away from home 11 to 12 hours a day during the week, and I'm working with doctors on autoimmune issues. Meanwhile, he doesn't help with housework. We've been sleeping in separate bedrooms for over a year. He stays up late, sometimes till 2, 3, or even 4 in the morning, while I have to get up at 4:30 in the morning at most days. He spends all day and night in his office, and he doesn't really try to interact with me. I've stopped trying to initiate any connection, and honestly, I've become pretty numb and unmotivated when it comes to our marriage. I know he loves me, but it feels more like family or friendship rather than marriage love. I know I need to keep working on myself, but how do I address his lack of effort in improving himself and our closeness? He also has a sleep apnea. He snores and stops breathing, but he refuses to get that checked out too. So thanks for any insights you may have. So right off the bat, I want to This is one of those things I see a lot in some of the emails, and then I also see it when it plays out in session with couples. I'm able to jump on it a whole lot faster. But right off the bat, when you hear this kind of a phrase and this kind of a situation, first off, there's a compassion for it because there's a lot of pain on both sides.
Absolutely.
Of this equation. So I'm not going to discount that at all, and I don't want to be flippant about that. Because there is a ton of pain that happens in marriage. Most of it is unrecognized and unspoken, but it is definitely felt because we have these longings and these desires that are unfulfilled and unmet. And then as you get higher up on the severity, it really even just increases the amount of pain. But when I hear these phrases of, I know he loves me, it always makes me wonder, how?
How do you know?
Yeah. Why? How does that strike you first? And then
that phrase actually stood out to me as well because it feels a little bit like a justification is not the right word, but kind of an excuse for the spouse saying, well, they treat me poorly, but I know they love me.
Right.
And so it's kind of an excuse for them.
It's a license.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's how it strikes me and it's also something, there's two sides to this this coin to me. On her side where she can say that to herself in her narrative because otherwise, if somebody treated me like that didn't love me, I would have no relationship with it because that's an easy no-brainer. If I am treated like that and I have no support, there's no collaboration, there's no interaction or pursuit. That's a pretty clear message.
Well, maybe it's a little bit of self-preservation of I want to work on this and here's part of why I want to work on it. I love them and I believe they love me and there's still something there. There is a connection and there is a reason to work on myself for the benefit of this relationship because I want to keep it. And so I think it's better at least to have, I don't think it's terrible to have that thought of, well, I know he loves me. But I think you have to have that realization of I'm having to tell myself that because they're not showing me they love me.
So here's the other side.
Am
of
I
the
off
coin.
base?
No. Here's the other side of the coin because I think and this is where I jump on it with clients is do you know they love you or they love the story they have with you? Because of all the other extraneous things that are part of the marriage. There's a lot of aspects of married life where people hang into it, not because of the spouse, but because of the collaborative story that's been created or the idealized, what I hope it can become. That's what I'm actually loving.
Well, that's not terrible if that can keep it together to going to the next level.
I'm not going to disagree with that at all. But what needs to be a pivot in some of this, just to jump right in. Welcome to Sexy Marriage Radio, by the way. But what needs to be a pivot in this is upping a level of honesty with your own self-talk and then with your spouse, because there's an element of, I know he loves me. And to me, I hear it as it's a weaponized kind of a love. It's because you don't do this, you don't do that. That's why I won't do this. That's not love.
I didn't hear her saying she wouldn't do something just because he.
Well, no, it's the idea of what she said at the beginning of they haven't had sex in 8 years. A year ago, he came out and said, it's because you're overweight and messy. And so
it's like he's weaponizing
that's conditionalized.
Okay.
Right. And I'm not going to say that some things that happen with our spouses don't become turnoffs. That can happen. But let's not dress it up in the framework of love. Because love is something that's beyond just a feeling. It's also an action. Because if I know he loves me, there would be actions that are in line that show that too. And what I'm hearing here is there's not a lot of actions.
Well, I think there's your bullet point there.
Right.
Yeah.
And then it comes down into the equation of where does the whole concept of self-love come into this dynamic? Because that's where she's landing, of the pain she's got and the frustration she's got because she's heard what he has said a year ago, and yet she's working on it. She's lost 22 pounds. She's trying to work on her diet, and yet it goes unnoticed and it goes unrecognized, which to me then continues to scream this idea of emotional fusion, where my identity is so wrapped up in your recognizing and acknowledging me rather than it's just my identity. I could be proud of the fact that look at what I've done. Whether you recognize it or not, that is not the point.
Okay, so this is, we don't know if she's a new listener or not. So I think that's worth unpacking a little bit, because maybe she hasn't heard some of the episodes and
yeah,
heard things. But so diving into that, wanting recognition for the weight loss and not getting it, and realizing I can't be in this because of him. I've got to be in this for my own health, my own well-being. And then if I'm wanting his recognition about it, well, that would be fabulous. It'd be good to have this partner that kind of walks alongside and says, you know what? I'm so proud of you. You lost 22 pounds. That's awesome. But if you don't, what does that look like for her? What does she have to do with that?
So then I think of this still, because we can't get into a degree of all or nothings, because we're not 100% self-validated in the sense of my primary motivation is just for my own well-being, and that's what I'm doing. We also take into account how people around me, particularly those I care about, are reacting to it, acknowledging it. And so it's almost like looking at this through a lens of a pie chart, to where I need to dial it to where it's more internally motivated and self-motivated by far than it is, I hope he recognizes this. I hope he sees it. Because whenever I get hurt, when somebody doesn't acknowledge it, that's one thing, and it's going to be a natural human thing. But whenever it starts to become defeating because they don't recognize it, then I am too attached to their recognizing, rather than I need to stay the course because this is who I want to be.
And hopefully that is where she is. This is who I want to be, so I'm going to stay the course, whether he recognizes or not. Do you bring up with him, hey, I'm working hard here, and it's kind of disappointing to me that I've got this success, and
I don't think so.
Do you
I don't
even
think
bring
so
that
yet.
up with him?
I think that's the idea of you want to just keep going down the path of self-development, whatever that might be, and let that be the message, not that I need acknowledgement from it. Because that's where it's almost like anytime something gets brought up and I feel like, wait, I've been doing the work to address that. I've been doing the work to change that. I'm in line with that. That's already in the process of being resolved. If I carry that through, I can bring it up like you're saying at some point if questioned, or if I'm at a low point and it's like, I really wish you would acknowledge this, and I kind of I can even bring it up very cleanly. Or it it lands so much stronger when it finally hits the point of, I have really seen it through that. And then there's the pressure of, why are you always heading to the gym? Where are you going tonight? Well, those kinds, because I'm just kind of living my life better. That sends a better message that's so much stronger and deeper than when I soft pedal it with the little drips throughout.
Okay, I see where you're going. And well, because some of this is, okay, maybe I lost 22 pounds, but my goal is 80 pounds. And the spouse is just kind of sitting there. Well, we're only 22 pounds into this. I'm going to wait and see where this goes. I want to see that you're actually going to live by it and be consistent.
Yeah.
And hit the goal. I mean, is that just a terrible way of looking at it?
Well, I think there's an element of us that we do that.
Yeah. Well, I think we see maps. We have maps of our spouse, and well, they've tried something before and it lasted for 2 months and then it stopped.
And let's not kid ourselves. We want what we want when it comes to our spouse. We want our spouse the way we want our spouse. Mm-hmm. We all have this idealized that's in there that we're all going to fight, mm-hmm. versus who am I actually married to? There's a discrepancy between these two things. Right? The idealized spouse versus the spouse I actually have, who they actually are right in front of me in a moment to moment basis. So yes, there is an element of that at play. But what I'm hearing in this dilemma is they both are just living the parallel lives that they might be paying attention on a cursory level of what each other's doing. But they've put some pretty big flags in the ground of, no, this is what I want. And until that happens, I'm out, basically.
Flags in the ground or barriers with schedules. I mean, if she's working and away from the house 11 to 12 hours a day, mm-hmm. then it would be that's a barrier, mm-hmm. to having intentional time together. Well, you can still have intentional time together, but it's a barrier to how much time you actually have for that. Right. Things like that.
Yeah. And so
can just be part of life and work.
I don't want to get caught up in focusing on him because we don't know enough with the story, and he's not the one that emailed in, she is. And so this is when you start looking at her situation, one of the steps that makes sense to me is trying to help her understand of how does she get better at letting go of trying to make him care, make him notice, because that seems to be a primary motivator in here. I want him to notice. I want him to care. And that's what we've been spending this time talking about. I gotta reel that in and realize this isn't about trying to get approval or perfection or anything as he sees it. That just fuels this fusion.
Yeah, she's got no control over whether he's going to care or not.
Right. And so this is stop over investing in things when it isn't reciprocated. Right. Ask some pointed questions. What are the things I'm actually probably doing that have an attachment to, I hope he notices this, and dial it back to where, wait, if it's just about him noticing it, do I even really want to do it? What would I really want to be doing? Or if it's, no, I want this too, well, then keep that as the primary motivator, because then you start taking more. I mean, one way to think of it is take radical responsibility for yourself, which is your anxieties, your disappointments, your fatigue, your frustrations. They're yours to manage. They're not his to fix. And a lot of times what we do is we outsource that on, I want them to act a certain way too, so I don't, rather wait, no, I need to shore up. My frustrations with him are mine to deal with. And I can model a different way forward, potentially, for our marriage by owning my side of this better rather than playing the same game the same way he does. Because that's what the email did. Did you notice that? She listed, here's the frustrations he's got with me, and then she listed out the frustrations she's got with him. He doesn't take care of those either. And I go, okay, yeah, those are all facts. I don't want to dispute that. But let go of that and then just look at it as I'm responsible for my own well-being. I'm responsible for my side of this equation. So if I'm frustrated about some of these things, face it better.
Take care of the stuff on your side of the equation. Mm-hmm. So often that helps work things out. Hopefully, at least.
At the very least, it starts to get you a much cleaner picture of what you actually are up against. Because right now, this is what we all far too often do, is I'm positioning myself. And by doing so, I position you in a certain way, and I can easily make it about you, and it's not about me. Rather than, wait a second. If what he's brought to my attention is there's some truth in it, let's say, I'm like, yeah, yes, I am messy. And I don't like that about myself. Okay, I got an action point I can work on. And I'm going to do it for me because it's better for me. And I'm not going to do it hoping that he notices it. And then once he notices it, maybe he'll take care of his sleep apnea. That's not the point. The point is there was truth there that I see that's valid that I want to face. That's what I'm going to do. Because the future me is going to be better and grateful for that. And maybe he gets the benefit of that. Maybe he doesn't. I don't know. That's too soon to even talk about yet. But it's going down the path of how do I live more in line with myself and honestly with myself, which is where we're going to go with the extended content here in just a little bit, and bring myself forward while still maintaining the potential of a relationship. Because this is not at all, because this is one thing that people will do, because you made the comment, I don't know if anybody's new to the show and we're starting talking about the whole concept of differentiation, which is what this is. It's not individuation. I don't do it to the exclusion of a relationship, right? I don't just all of a sudden create a total solo separate life. I do this within the context of my relationship still, which means if I've got something I wanted to start facing and dealing with better in our marriage, I would want to face me, but still have times of trying to interact with you, still have times to show I'm still here. I'm still invested. I still care. Like her case would be, he's in his office all hours. Okay, well, go in and say, hey, when you get home, and make it friendly and nice. Hey, how's your day? Great, because that's the spouse I want to be. And he may not even look up from the computer. It's okay. You still did what you wanted to be in that moment. That's a better move, and it's relationally driven.
I 100%
and then
agree.
In time, that pressure shifts something or it doesn't. But yeah. It's a cleaner way to face what the dynamic actually is.
I 100% agree. Now that can be hard.
It is completely hard.
Because you go into his office, you acknowledge him. If he doesn't even look up from his computer, that's like rejection. It's like all the people saying, well, I keep getting rejected when I, make advances for sex. Well, him not looking up from the computer would be a rejection to her, right? Trying to make those connections, trying to still live from who you want to be. It's still possibly there, but you can sleep well at night, at least with the aspect of I'm doing what I believe I should be doing.
I'm being the spouse I want to be, the person I want to be. This is that equate to the idea of I would want to be married to this person.
Yeah.
Right. And let's use this to set up the extended content too, because this is a little bit of the transition. That there's a hard truth when we start to look at, when we get down into the pain points and the hurt points and the abandonment points and these kinds of feelings that we can have in marriage, particularly when it gets to the darks of marriage, these elements.
The dark side.
Well, yeah, I meant the darkness, but I kind of.
Darkness. Okay. I was like, what's a dark?
The darks of marriage. You know what I mean? But there's this element of I start to get protective and I start just shelling up and I withdraw.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes sense, objectively speaking, but the cost is really high in the long run because my spouse will likely do the same thing, right? Don't we all have this reactive toddler in us that would be like, well, if you're not going to do it, I'm not going to do it either, right? And it's just, that's how we play this out. Or it can go the other way where we all have this toddler bully in us that you hurt me, I'll hurt you back kind of a thing. So the hard truth is, when I'm looking at being the spouse I want to be, if my clarity or courage or kindness only exists when I feel like my spouse is operating in a good way, it's not really clarity, courage, or kindness. It's conditional. what we're called to do is love. We're called to kindness. That's what makes marriage and life better, is bringing about the better parts of us and bringing that forward and sharing that. And so when I'm living honestly with myself, how do I recognize, where am I living the partner I would want to be, independent of how my spouse is behaving? Am I being who I want to be, independent of how they behave? Because there's the difference, is look at their behaviors. That's what shows you who they are. That's what shows you where they are.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can pick it up on their tones. This happened last night on the phone call. You called coming home late, and I was distracted, transitioning from one thing to another right when you called. And you're like, "You okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, just my mind's not in it yet." And there was nothing said, and it was over the phone. You just picked it up in a tone or something.
I'm just smart that way.
Well, absolutely you are. But it's looking at it as, how do you bring yourself forward to really ask the questions of, is this truly kindness I'm showing? Is this truly love I'm showing? Compassion, care? Or is it all tied to how they are behaving? And if you want to find out even more how to answer that question, join us in the Extended.